You ever feel like there's something everyone's been hiding from you? Like the world's been playing some long, cruel joke, and you're the only one who didn't get the punchline. You walk through life smiling, pretending you understand how it all works, but deep down, you don't. You sense it, that itch in your chest that says something isn't right. People talk, they lie. They distract you with promises, with comfort, with noise, but no one ever tells you the truth. Not the real one, the kind that doesn't sound beautiful, but burns. Funny thing about truth, it's always been there, hiding in plain sight. You walk past it every day, talk over it, laugh around it, but you never really see it. Not because it's invisible, but because you were never taught how to look. They trained your eyes to see distraction as reality and reality as madness. You were told what to believe before you even knew how to think. The system, the people, the rules, all whispering the same lullaby. Don't question, just follow. And you did. You followed. Because that's what good people do, right? They obey. They fit in. They conform. But in the process, you traded curiosity for comfort, and that's how they kept you asleep. They built your world like a stage, with props and actors, and you clapped along, believing it was real. They told you success means money, happiness means approval, love means possession, and you bought it, every bit of it. You measured your worth through other people's eyes, and you called it ambition. You killed your silence with noise, your thoughts with entertainment, your soul with validation, and you called it living. But deep down, you knew something was off. You felt it in the pit of your stomach. That slight twist when you smiled for pictures. That empty space when you got what you wanted and still felt nothing. That wasn't failure. That was truth, whispering, "Wake up." You see, truth doesn't hide. It waits. It waits for the moment when your illusions start to crack, when the fake smiles stop working, when the people you trusted show their masks, when the things you thought mattered begin to rot. That's when it shows up. Not with light, but with chaos. Because truth doesn't arrive gently. It dismantles. It tears through your comforts, your excuses, your false sense of control. And when it does, you'll hate it. You'll resist it. You'll call it unfair, cruel, unbearable. But that's how truth always feels at first, like destruction. Only later do you realize it was reconstruction. You were told that questioning is dangerous. That doubt means weakness. But it's the opposite. Doubt is the seed of clarity. The ones who question are the only ones who ever find answers. Everyone else just repeats what they've been told, generation after generation, building their lives on borrowed beliefs. You've been worshiping structures that were never built for you. School systems that teach obedience, jobs that drain purpose, religions that manipulate fear, governments that sell illusion. And every time someone tries to look deeper, they're labeled as lost, broken, rebellious. Because truth threatens the system. And awareness is the one thing the system can't control. It's not that they hid the truth. It's that they made you too distracted to see it. They gave you constant noise, endless scrolling, fake goals, cheap pleasures. They fed you enough comfort to keep you quiet, but not enough to make you free. You started confusing stimulation for happiness, attention for love, success for meaning. You built your identity out of reflections, other people's opinions, society's standards, numbers on screens. But none of it was ever all you. You've been running from emptiness when that emptiness was the doorway back to yourself. The real tragedy isn't that you were lied to. It's that you accepted the lie because it was easier than starting over. You convinced yourself ignorance is peace, when really, it's just a slower form of dying. The truth doesn't destroy your life. It destroys your illusions. And that's what you're really afraid of losing. You say you want clarity, but you want it without consequences. You want to see without letting go. But it doesn't work that way. Once you start to see, once you peel back the layers, everything changes. You can't unhear the truth. You can't unknow it. You can't go back to pretending. They didn't need to chain you. They just needed to teach you to doubt your own mind, to make you afraid of being different, afraid of being alone, afraid of being wrong. So you played along. You smiled when you were breaking. You stayed silent when your soul screamed. You became everything they said you should be, and nothing you actually are. And now, here you are, halfway between who you were told to be and who you truly are. The truth is pulling, but fear is holding. You can feel the tension inside you, that war between comfort and awakening. And maybe that's what this moment is. Maybe that's why this message found you. Because you've reached the point where the lies no longer fit. The world feels heavier, the faces feel faker, the noise feels unbearable. You're not losing your mind. You're starting to see. You're noticing how everything connects, how everything's been orchestrated to keep you distracted, obedient, quiet. You're not crazy for sensing it. You're waking up to it. The truth isn't some secret waiting to be uncovered. It's been staring at you all along, waiting for the moment you'd finally be brave enough to look it in the eye. You ever wonder why people are so afraid to be honest? Not with others, with themselves. Because truth doesn't flatter. It doesn't pat your back and tell you everything's fine. It looks you dead in the eyes and says, you've been lying to yourself. And people hate that. They'd rather build a fantasy, dress it up, and live inside it than face what's real. That's why the world is full of smiling faces, hiding empty hearts. Everyone's pretending they're okay, chasing approval, chasing status, chasing anything that makes the silence quieter. Because the silence is where the truth lives, and nobody wants to sit with it. You keep scrolling, laughing, talking, working, posting, anything to avoid that moment when it's just you and your thoughts. Because when it's quiet, you hear the truth knocking, that soft, unwanted voice whispering, this isn't who you are. You try to drown it with noise, numb it with distractions, but it always finds a way back in. That's why no matter how much you achieve, there's still that emptiness sitting behind your smile. You think more money will fix it, more attention, more recognition. But it doesn't, because it's not a hole in your life. It's a hole in your soul. The world taught you to wear masks. Be polite. Be perfect. Be predictable. Don't show weakness. Don't question the script. You learn to act before you learn to feel. To say what's expected, not what's true. You even started believing your own performance. You wake up every day rehearsing lines you didn't write. Lines about success, love, purpose. All borrowed from someone else's dream. You've become so used to pretending that you call it being normal. But there's nothing normal about burying your own truth just to fit into a world that's already sick. They told you that vulnerability is weakness, that emotions make you fragile, that truth makes you dangerous. But what they didn't tell you is that pretending makes you hollow. You think you're protecting yourself by hiding, but you're just slowly disappearing. Every time you lie to yourself, a piece of you fades. Every time you stay quiet when you should speak, your spirit dims. You're not protecting yourself from pain. You're surrendering your soul to fear. And fear is a clever master. It whispers that comfort equals safety, that silence equals peace. But it's a lie. Comfort is the cage. Silence is the lock. You see, honesty doesn't destroy you. It frees you. But the process hurts. Because to be honest, you have to admit how much time you've wasted, how many chances you've missed, how many times you betrayed yourself just to please others. That's the hardest part. Realizing the prison was never around you. It was inside you. Built by your choices. Maintained by your fears. You held the keys the whole time, but were too scared to use them. Because freedom means responsibility. It means facing who you really are when the masks fall off. Everyone wants change, but nobody wants to be honest about why they're stuck. You say you want peace, but you hold grudges. You say you want love, but you keep chasing validation. You say you want success, but you're addicted to comfort. You can't heal from what you refuse to confront. You keep blaming the world, blaming luck, blaming timing, but deep down, you know, it's you. You're the one standing in your own way. The lies you tell yourself every day are heavier than the truth you're running from. And it's funny, isn't it? The moment you decide to be honest, the world turns against you. People start calling you cold, arrogant, crazy, because truth makes them uncomfortable. They've built their peace on illusion, so your honesty feels like an attack. But that's the price of seeing clearly. You stop belonging where blindness is comfort. That's why most people never wake up. It's easier to live in a lie that everyone agrees with than a truth that makes you stand alone. But the thing about honesty is, once you taste it, even a little, you can't go back. It burns at first, but then it cleanses. It strips you down until there's nothing left to hide behind. No fake smiles, no excuses, no pretending. Just raw, uncomfortable clarity. And that's where real power begins. Because when you stop lying to yourself, nobody can manipulate you anymore. They can't guilt you, can't shame you, can't control you. You become unpredictable, unbreakable, alive. You'll start noticing the lies everywhere, In the ads, the news, the people, the conversations. You'll see how everyone's just performing, desperate to look happy, while silently crumbling inside. You'll realize you don't fit in anymore, because you stopped needing to. The truth isolates you before it liberates you. But that isolation isn't punishment. It's purification. It's the moment you stop chasing illusions and start building something real. And maybe that's the secret they never wanted you to know. That all your power, all your peace, all your meaning, it's been waiting on the other side of honesty. Not the kind you post online, not the kind you use to impress people, but the kind that burns away everything false. The kind that hurts before it heals. The kind that forces you to see yourself, not the version the world made, but the one that's been waiting to be free. Reality. What a funny word, isn't it? Everyone thinks they're living in it. But most people are trapped in a version of it, built on lies, comfort, and habit. You think you see the world for what it is, but really, you see it through the fog of your own expectations. You've been told what's normal, what's good, what's successful. And without even realizing it, you started chasing that picture like it was your own dream. But the cruel part, that picture was never yours. It was painted by people who needed you to believe in it, so you'd stay where you are. Predictable, manageable, easy to control. You wake up, follow the same routine, talk about the same meaningless things, pretend to care about the same shallow goals. You call it stability, but it's stagnation. You call it life, but it's performance. You've been hypnotized into believing that reality is just what you see. The bills, the job, the screens, the endless loop. But reality is deeper, darker, sharper than that. It doesn't care about your plans, your excuses, or your fragile comfort. It waits for the moment when you're no longer distracted, when the noise fades. And that's when it shows its face. And when it does, it doesn't come gently. It doesn't whisper. It crashes into you. You lose someone, you fail, you fall, and suddenly the pretty illusion shatters. That's the moment you meet reality. Not the filtered, sugar-coated version, but the raw, cold, unfiltered truth. The one that doesn't care about how hard you tried or how much you believed. It just stares at you and says, "Now what?" And that's where most people break. Because they realize the life they built wasn't built on truth. It was built on denial. You see, illusions are comfortable because they make you feel safe. They tell you that things will work out if you just stay patient. If you keep pretending, if you keep smiling. They whisper that you're doing fine, even when you're not. But reality doesn't play that game. It exposes you. It strips away the fake confidence, the fake friends, the fake dreams. It takes away everything you were hiding behind and forces you to look at yourself. Not the polished version, but the one you've been avoiding. That's why people fear honesty. Because it destroys everything that isn't real. And that destruction, that's where transformation starts. Because when the illusion dies, something inside you wakes up. You start to see that pain isn't punishment, it's revelation. Every heartbreak, every failure, every disappointment is reality trying to pull you closer to truth. You just misread it. You thought life was attacking you, but it was actually trying to free you. It was trying to tear down everything false so that you could finally build something real. But you fought it, didn't you? You clung to your illusions like a child holding a broken toy, whispering, "It's mine. It's easier to stay blind." That's why most people never change. They'll blame the world, blame others, blame fate. Anything but themselves. Because facing reality means taking responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. It means admitting that nobody's coming to save you. It means seeing that your pain is your teacher, your fear is your test, and your failures are your mirrors. Reality doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to wake you up. But waking up hurts, especially when you've been dreaming for so long. You start noticing how fake everything feels. The conversations, the smiles, the ambitions. You realize most people don't actually want the truth. They just want something that feels nice. They want comfort dressed as meaning. They'll tell you to be positive, to stay calm, to go with the flow, because they're terrified of what happens when the flow ends. They're terrified of stillness, because stillness exposes reality. And the moment you stop running, you see it. The emptiness behind all the noise, the pointlessness behind the pretending. But here's the thing, reality isn't your enemy. It's your robust ally. It's the one thing that doesn't lie to you. It doesn't promise you happiness, but it promises you clarity. And clarity, that's worth everything. Because once you see things as they are, not as you wish they were, you become dangerous. You stop being manipulated by illusions, by people, by systems. You stop chasing what doesn't matter and start building what does. You stop running from pain and start learning from it. You stop existing and start living. That's when you realize reality isn't cruel, it's cleansing. It strips you bare not to break you, but to rebuild you. It forces you to grow, to toughen, to evolve. Because truth doesn't make you soft, it makes you strong. You can't be destroyed by what you've already faced. Once you've looked at life without flinching, nothing can scare you anymore. You stop needing validation, approval, or permission. You stop apologizing for seeing too clearly. You stop begging for peace from a world built on chaos, and instead, you find it inside yourself, where reality always wanted you to look. That's the thing about seeing reality for what it is. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes it real. And real is all you've ever needed. Because once the illusions fade, there's no going back. You can't unsee what's true. You can't unknow what you've learned. You can only move forward, stripped, scarred, awake, and finally alive. You wait your whole life for the right moment, don't you? You tell yourself you'll change when it's time, when things calm down, when you're ready. But the truth is, that moment never comes. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. It waits for you to be honest. That's the real turning point. Not when you get your big break. Not when someone gives you permission. but when you finally stop lying to yourself. You've built this illusion that change is something gentle, something that happens when everything lines up just right. But it doesn't. Change happens when the lie becomes too heavy to carry. When the noise inside your head gets too loud to ignore. When pretending starts to feel like dying. You keep telling yourself stories, don't you? I'll start when I have more time. Ooh, I'll speak up when I'm stronger. Ooh, I'll leave when I'm certain. But that's how you trap yourself. That's how life slips through your fingers while you wait for a perfect moment that doesn't exist. Because life doesn't shift when you're comfortable. It shifts when you're desperate enough to stop lying. You say you want peace, but you cling to the chaos you've grown used to. You say you want truth, but you run from anything that threatens your illusion. You say you want to move forward, but you keep dragging your past behind you like a trophy of pain. You've mistaken control for safety. You think that by holding on, you're protecting yourself from failure. But control is the biggest illusion there is. You don't control life. You only delay its lessons. You can resist the truth, deny it, fight it, but it always wins in the end. It waits, it watches. It lets you exhaust yourself, trying to build walls against what's meant to come through. And when those walls finally crumble, you realize something. Life was never against you. You were against yourself. You were so afraid of the unknown that you'd rather stay in pain you understand than walk into peace you don't. That's why honesty feels so uncomfortable. Because once you admit the truth, there's no turning back. Once you say, "I'm not happy," you can't pretend anymore. Once you realize, this isn't love, you can't keep holding on. Once you see, this path isn't mine, you can't unsee it. Awareness ruins illusions, and that's why people choose blindness. Because it's easier to keep pretending everything's fine than to rebuild everything from the ground up. But deep down, you know, pretending is killing you. Slowly, quietly, you're smiling in public and suffocating in private. Laughing on the outside, rotting on the inside. You see, life doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about your growth. It will keep breaking you in the same place until you learn what it's trying to teach you. It'll send the same pain in different faces, the same lesson in new disguises. Because pain isn't punishment, it's direction. It's life saying, you're not where you're supposed to be. But you label it as unfair, unlucky, undeserved. You don't realize it's the wake up call you begged for. You asked for strength. Life gave you struggle. You asked for truth. Life took away your illusions. You asked for peace. Life destroyed your distractions. But you were too focused on the loss to see the message. Change doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes disguised as chaos. It takes everything familiar and flips it upside down. It strips you of what you thought you needed so you can finally see what you actually do. And in those moments, when everything's falling apart, when you can't recognize your own reflection, when you think it's all over, that's when it's beginning. That's when the old version of you is dying. The version built on fear, on lies, on survival. The version that settled, stayed quiet, and accepted less. That version can't come with you. That's why it hurts. You're not losing your life. You're shedding your disguise. You've been taught that honesty is dangerous, that truth costs too much, that real change should be slow and polite. But life doesn't deal in politeness. It deals in necessity. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It forces you to become ready. Every breakdown you've had wasn't a collapse. It was a correction. Every disappointment wasn't rejection. It was redirection. You just didn't see it because you were too busy trying to save the version of your life that was never real. And you keep wondering why things repeat. Why you keep meeting the same kind of people, facing the same kind of losses, feeling the same kind of emptiness. It's because you haven't learned the lesson. You keep repainting the same broken wall instead of tearing it down. You can't fix what was built on lies. You can't evolve while pretending everything's fine. You can't find truth while clinging to illusion. The longer you resist, the louder life gets. The longer you avoid the truth, the harsher it hits. That's why the shift never happens when you're comfortable. It happens when comfort starts to suffocate you, when you can't keep pretending, when you stop caring about appearances, approval, and fear, when you finally say, enough. That's the moment life starts to move. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Because you stop asking for the storm to pass and start learning how to walk through it. Because you stop hoping for peace and start creating it inside the chaos. Because you finally understand. Truth doesn't arrive wrapped in calm. It arrives dressed as destruction. And it only destroys what was never meant to last. You ever notice how the person you were a few years ago wouldn't even recognize you now? Not because you've grown, but because you've changed shape so many times just to survive. You've worn so many versions of yourself to fit into rooms that didn't deserve you, to please people who didn't value you, to chase things that never truly mattered. And you call it growth, but it's not. It's survival. The version of you that brought you here did what it had to do. It smiled when it was breaking. It worked when it was empty. It believed when it was being used. But that version can't take you any further. It was built for survival, not success. For pain, not purpose. You keep clinging to it, though. The habits, the fears, the old wounds. They've become familiar. You've mistaken them for identity. You say things like, "That's just who I am," or "I've always been this way," as if the past gets to define your future. But deep down, you know that voice in your head, the one that keeps whispering you're meant for more. It's not lying. It's the part of you that's outgrown the old version, screaming to be free. Yet, you silence it with doubt, with excuses, with routine. You tell yourself it's too risky to change, too late to start, too hard to rebuild. But what you're really afraid of isn't failure. It's transformation. Transformation means death. The death of who you used to be. And people don't talk about how brutal that is. Everyone glamorizes change like it's this beautiful sunrise, but it's not. It's a fire. It burns everything false. It takes your comfort, your control, your old identity, and sets it all on fire. And you stand there watching the pieces of your old life crumble, wondering if there's anything left of you underneath. That's the part no one warns you about. The part where you have to let go of everything that once made sense. The job that defines you, the people who shaped you, the beliefs that kept you safe. You lose them, and it feels like dying. But it's not death. It's rebirth. You ever wonder why the people with everything always look so empty? The ones who have the power, the money, the world at their fingertips. Yet their eyes still look hollow. They've built empires, bought everything you dream of, but there's something they can't buy. Peace. You think they're free, but they're not. They're prisoners of their own success, trapped in golden cages with walls made of silence. Because when the noise of the world fades and the lights go out, they're left alone with the one thing they can't escape: themselves. They told you that success would fix everything, didn't they? That once you had the money, the cars, the applause, the power, you'd finally feel whole. They painted the picture perfectly. The billionaire sitting on top of the world, smiling like he's cracked life's final code. But what they never show you is what happens when the cameras turn off, when the lights fade, when the world stops cheering. That's when you hear it, that faint, unbearable whisper echoing in the silence. The illusion of success, you see. The world taught you to chase it like it's salvation. But what they didn't tell you is that success was never about peace. It was about distraction. A shiny mask for a hollow face. You start believing you're untouchable, unstoppable, immortal even. You buy more, you build more, you conquer more. But every night, the same question stares back at you from the dark ceiling above your bed. Is this it? You thought success would make you feel something permanent, something that couldn't fade, but all it did was amplify the emptiness that was always there. The illusion becomes clearer with every new achievement, every new possession, every empty toast at another meaningless party. Because success has a way of showing you what really matters by taking it away. The cruel trick is that people worship you for the very thing that destroyed your peace. They envy your cage because it's made of gold. They don't see the loneliness dripping from your smile. They don't hear the sound of your laughter echoing in an empty room. You became everything the world wanted you to be, but lost everything you actually needed. You became a reflection of their desires, not your own. They call you a genius, a visionary, a god, but deep down, you know you're just tired. Tired of pretending that all this means something. Success isolates. It separates you from the rest, puts you on a pedestal you never asked for, but can't step down from. And once you're up there, you realize it's cold. You realize no one claps for you when you cry. No one celebrates your sleepless nights, your broken relationships, your quiet regrets. They only want the highlight reel, not the man behind it. And when you try to tell them it's not what it seems, they laugh because they still believe the same illusion you once did. They don't want the truth. They want the fantasy. They want to believe that money cures pain and fame heals loneliness. But the truth is, success doesn't fill the void. It just decorates it. It gives you things to look at so you don't notice how empty you feel. It distracts you with noise, lights, and attention. And yet, no matter how bright it shines, the silence always returns. You can't buy peace. You can't trade for meaning. And you can't build love out of concrete and glass. The illusion sells comfort, but the soul craves connection. The illusion promises happiness, but the soul only finds it in truth. So the billionaire sits there, surrounded by everything he once dreamed of, realizing he's been living inside a lie too big to escape. The illusion was never success itself. It was the belief that success could save him. And when that illusion shatters, he sees it all for what it is, a beautifully constructed prison, made of everything the world told him to desire. The people outside look at him and say, "He's made it." But if they could hear the silence inside his heart, they'd realize he's been trying to escape ever since he arrived. People don't chase money because they love paper. They chase it because they think it'll buy them the respect they were denied. They think if they pile enough of it up, maybe people will finally listen, finally see them, finally care. But here's the trick. The world doesn't respect you for what you have. It just envies you for it. Respect built on envy isn't real. It's a performance, a fragile illusion dressed in admiration. You start confusing fear with loyalty and praise with love. The more you have, the louder the applause. But the moment you fall, silence. Not because they didn't care, but because they never truly did. They were never clapping for you. They were clapping for what they could never be. And that's the poison. You begin to crave that applause, to depend on it like oxygen. You start bending yourself to keep it coming. You smile when you want to scream. You give when you have nothing left. You pretend you're fine when you're falling apart. Because deep down, you know that if the applause stops, you'll have to face yourself, the version of you that exists without money, fame, or validation. That's the version you've been running from all along. You bury yourself in achievements, in luxury, in noise, hoping to drown out that voice inside whispering that maybe, just maybe, you've built your worth on lies. Money gives you power, but it also takes your freedom. Every dollar ties you to someone's expectations. Every success raises the bar higher until you're trapped in your own empire. You think you own it all, but in reality, it owns you. You can't walk away because you've made the world believe you have everything. And you can't stand to see their faces. If they ever found out, you're just as lost as they are. You've become a prisoner of your own success, wearing golden chains, smiling through exhaustion, pretending that the throne isn't just another cage. It's funny how people say, money changes you. It doesn't. It just amplifies what was already there. If you were broken, it multiplies the cracks. If you were empty, it expands the void. You can cover it with luxury cars, designer suits, or applause, but the mirror never lies. When you look into it long enough, you see what you've truly become. Someone who traded authenticity for approval. Someone who mistook status for self-worth. You realize that you spent your life climbing a ladder that leaned against the wrong wall. The cruel part is, when you finally have it all, you can't tell anyone how miserable you are. Because who would believe you? They'd laugh. They'd call you ungrateful. They'd remind you how lucky you are. But luck is a curse when it blinds you to what really matters. You can't admit that your victories feel hollow, that your laughter feels rehearsed, that your relationships feel transactional. You've built a world where you can buy anything except peace. And maybe that's the greatest joke of all. The people you stepped on to get here, they sleep better than you. The ones you ignored, they smile more honestly. You sit in your mansion, surrounded by echoes of laughter that isn't real, eating meals that don't taste right, watching the world spin outside while you rot in a luxury coffin made of your own choices. You thought wealth would set you free, but it only made the walls higher. You thought power would make you loved, but it only made people fear you. You thought respect came from having, not being. And now you see the price of that mistake. So you pour another drink, scroll through fake smiles on your phone, and wonder if this is what winning feels like. You can't go back, you can't escape, and you can't pretend anymore. The empire you built is heavy, and the soul beneath it is suffocating. You wanted the world to remember your name, but now you'd give anything to remember who you were before all of this began. Power. It's the sweetest poison ever created. Everyone wants it, everyone's chasing it, and no one truly understands what it costs until it's too late. At first, it feels good, intoxicating, almost divine. People look at you differently. They move out of your way. They speak softer when you enter the room. You start to believe you've finally won, that the world is yours to shape. But power has a dark sense of humor. It makes you feel untouchable while slowly tightening the noose around your neck. You don't even realize it's happening. You think you're in control, when really control is what's being taken from you. The moment you start to enjoy the feeling of being above others, you become dependent on it. You stop listening to people unless they flatter you. You stop questioning yourself because it feels safer to believe you're right. You start living in an echo chamber of approval, and soon you forget what truth even sounds like. Power isolates you, not because people walk away, but because you stop letting them get close enough to see the cracks. And those cracks, they grow fast. You can't share weakness anymore. It would ruin the illusion. You can't ask for help. It would make you look small. You can't show emotion. It would make you human. So, you build walls higher and higher, telling yourself it's protection, when really, it's a prison. You sit at the top of your empire surrounded by people who smile too wide and speak too carefully, and you can't tell if they like you or fear you. You try to convince yourself it doesn't matter, but at night, when the noise dies down, that silence becomes unbearable. Power creates distance between you and others, between you and peace, between you and yourself. You can't have genuine connections anymore, because you'll never know if they're drawn to you or to the influence you carry. Every compliment becomes a question mark. Every handshake feels like a transaction. Every friendship has a price tag. You wanted control, but what you got was isolation dressed as victory. You don't own power. Power owns you. It feeds on your insecurities, your need to be seen, your fear of being ordinary. It convinces you that love, respect, and loyalty are all the same thing. And then it laughs when you find out they're not. See, power doesn't corrupt suddenly. It corrupts quietly. It doesn't demand that you become a monster overnight. It just asks you to compromise, a little at first. Bend a rule here, ignore a voice there. Justify a wrong decision because it's for the greater good. And by the time you realize what you've become, you're already too deep. You start looking down at everyone else, forgetting that once you were one of them. You start believing that you're special, chosen, above it all. That's when the transformation is complete. When you start seeing others as tools, not people. But power never stays loyal. The same people who once bowed before you are the ones sharpening their knives when you fall. And you will fall, eventually. Not because you're weak, but because power always turns on those who depend on it too much. It feeds your ego until it's bloated and blind. Then watches as you destroy yourself, trying to protect the very illusion that's killing you. You'll start making desperate choices, not because you want to, but because you can't bear to lose the only thing that still gives you meaning. In the end, you're not leading anyone. You're just dancing for their attention, addicted to the feeling of being needed, terrified of becoming invisible. You'll pretend you're fine, but deep down you'll know. You've traded your soul for control. You'll remember the times when you used to laugh without strategy, speak without calculation, care without motive. And that memory will sting, because you'll know you can never go back. You'll realize that power never gave you freedom. It just replaced your old chains with golden ones. You'll realize that all the influence, all the dominance, all the fear you inspired, it was never respect, it was survival. People obeyed you not because they loved you, but because they feared losing what you could take away. And one day, when that power slips through your fingers, when the crowd finds a new idol to worship, you'll understand what it really meant to have everything and still feel completely alone. The world doesn't reward honesty. It rewards performance. Everyone's playing a part, pretending to be fine, pretending to be happy, pretending to be in control. You walk down the street and see people smiling, laughing, acting like everything's perfect. But behind those eyes, there's chaos. Behind that confidence, there's fear. Behind that laughter, there's loneliness. And it's not their fault. The world teaches you that the truth isn't marketable, that being real doesn't sell. So people learn early, hide it, mask it, package it into something others will like. Because nobody wants the truth. They just want a version of you that makes them comfortable. You grow up being told to fit in, to behave, to be normal. But normal is just a costume everyone wears to hide the cracks. You start to realize that everyone's pretending. But by the time you see it, you're already part of the act. You've learned to smile when you're breaking, to say, "I'm fine," when you're drowning, to perform the role the world expects. You stop being yourself and start being what the world wants to see. And the longer you play that role, the more you lose the person behind it. You want to tell the truth, but the truth makes people uncomfortable. The truth breaks illusions, and illusions are what keep this world spinning. So you lie. Not because you want to, but because it's easier. You lie to your friends, to your family, to yourself. You tell yourself you're happy, that everything's fine, that you're in control. You start believing your own lies just to survive another day in a world that punishes authenticity and rewards performance. It's all a game. The job interviews, the social media, the small talk, it's all scripted. Everyone trying to outshine each other, to prove they're happier, richer, stronger, more successful. But it's hollow, it's noise. And when you strip it all away, you're left with silence. And that silence terrifies people. Because silence makes you see what you've been running from. It shows you the truth you've buried under smiles and filters and fake laughter. The scariest part isn't that everyone's pretending. It's that most people don't even realize they're doing it anymore. They've become so good at lying that they've forgotten what the truth feels like. They wake up, put on their masks, and call it living. They go to bed, exhausted from pretending, and call it life. They've forgotten how to be real because realness doesn't win in this world. Appearances do. And you know what's funny. Even the people who tell you to be yourself don't mean it. They mean, be yourself as long as it doesn't make us uncomfortable. Be confident, but not too confident. Be kind, but not weak. Be successful, but not threatening. Be different, but only in ways we approve of. They don't want the truth. They want control. They want you to be predictable, manageable, safe. Because when you stop playing the part, when you start questioning the script, you become dangerous. That's why truth tellers are always the outcasts. The world doesn't crucify liars. It crucifies those who expose lies. Because lies hold society together. Lies keep people working, consuming, obeying. The moment you stop pretending, you remind everyone else that they're pretending too, and they hate that feeling, that reflection of their own emptiness. So they'll call you crazy, bitter, lost. They'll say you've changed, when in reality, you've just stopped performing. And when you stop performing, you start seeing the game for what it really is. The promotions, the popularity, the praise. It's all part of the same illusion. You realize that truth doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It just exists, quiet and uncomfortable, waiting for the few who are brave enough to face it. But most people never will. They'll keep smiling for the camera, keep clapping for the show, keep pretending everything's fine, because pretending is easier than feeling. So they live their whole lives trapped in roles they never chose, acting out scenes they don't believe in, surrounded by people doing the same. They laugh, they work, they grow old. And somewhere along the way, they forget what their own voice sounds like. They forget who they were before the world told them who to be. And by the time they remember, it's usually too late. The mask has fused with the skin, and they can't take it off anymore without tearing themselves apart. Peace, the most expensive thing in the world, and yet the one thing people treat like it's worthless. Everyone's chasing something: money, fame, approval, but nobody's chasing peace. Because peace doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. It's quiet. It's simple. It's not something you can show off. And that's why they ignore it. People want noise. They want validation. They want to be seen, heard, admired. But peace doesn't care about any of that. Peace isn't loud. It's the absence of all the things you thought mattered. It's the silence that's left after the applause fades. You see people running, always running. To work, to success, to relationships, to distractions. They call it ambition, but half the time, it's escape. They don't want to face themselves, so they keep moving, keep working, keep filling their lives with noise. Because when they stop, when everything finally goes quiet, that's when the truth starts whispering, and they can't handle it. They can't handle silence, because silence exposes everything they've buried. The guilt, the loneliness, the fear. The things that can't be hidden under a smile or a bank account. Peace doesn't come from fixing the world. It comes from surviving it without losing yourself. You don't find peace in having everything. You find it in realizing you don't need to. The rich think they can buy it. The powerful think they can control it. The famous think they can fake it. But peace doesn't play by their rules. It slips through the cracks of their perfect lives, hiding where they never look. In honesty, in solitude, in surrender. You can't fake peace. You can fake happiness, you can fake love, but not peace. Peace doesn't perform. It doesn't care who's watching. It's not the smile you show the world. It's the sigh you release when no one's there. It's when you stop trying to impress people who wouldn't care if you disappeared. It's when you stop proving your worth to a world that profits from your insecurity. That's peace. Not a destination, but a detachment. And the cruel irony: the more you chase things, the further you drift from peace. You get the car, but now you worry about losing it. You get the fame, but now you fear being forgotten. You get the money, but now you're terrified it'll run out. Every gain becomes a new prison. You spend your whole life protecting the things that are actually protecting you from peace. The chains aren't on your wrists. They're in your mind, disguised as success. People confuse peace with comfort. They think peace means everything's perfect, no problems, no pain. But peace isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's being in chaos and not letting it own you. It's being surrounded by noise and not letting it get inside you. It's knowing that even when the world is against you, your mind doesn't have to be. Peace isn't something you get. It's something you stop losing. And that's the part that scares people most. Because to find peace, you have to let go of control, of ego, of the constant need to be more. And letting go feels like dying when all you've ever known is holding on. You've been taught that value comes from doing, from achieving, from winning. But peace isn't about doing. It's about undoing. Undoing everything the world made you believe you needed to be happy. Undoing the lies you told yourself to survive. Undoing the idea that rest is weakness and silence is failure. Peace doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It just needs space. Space you've been filling with noise, people and problems that don't even belong to you. The world will call you lazy for slowing down. It'll call you unambitious for walking away. It'll call you cold for protecting your energy. But the truth is, peace looks like rebellion in a world addicted to chaos. It's the ultimate act of defiance. To be calm when everyone else is desperate. And maybe that's why so few people ever find it. Because peace asks you to give up everything you thought made you matter. It asks you to sit with yourself, to face the silence you've been avoiding, to stop pretending that happiness lives in the next achievement. Peace asks for honesty, brutal, uncomfortable honesty, the kind that breaks you before it heals you. And most people can't handle that. They'd rather keep chasing, keep running, keep pretending. Because pretending feels easier than pausing. And that's why peace will always be rare. Not because it's hard to find, but because most people are too afraid to look for it.